So Pushpan, like some politicians would argue that because FSBs under certain ministries like rural development, they carry strong public or redistributive mandate, right? Like for example, I think Ashraf talked about how in the rural development ministry, there are FSBs that help like the Bumi Putra community, for example, mostly, right? Could this reasoning then support the supposed justification of political appointments funded by some politicians, right? Or you could also, argue it at the opposite direction by saying that, in fact, you should demand stronger safeguards because of it. What do you think?
I think what is important first to understand the context of FSBs in your rural development situation. You're looking at an institution that is primarily designed or mandated to actually provide assistance to rural folks and to develop a capacity to actually bring them into an economic situation that is on par with the urban life. So you have a particular mandate for a particular institution. Now, who would be the best person to actually run those organizations? So what I would argue against is that because it is supposed to be mandated for the public, therefore you want to put a politician, I think I'm definitely against that idea. Why? Because at the end of the day, the mandate will definitely be in conflict with the mandate of any politicians who is put in place to run an organization like this. Now, you also must look at historical context. Why do you think, for all of you here, why do you think Zaid Hamidi is put in place as the head of that particular ministry? So if you think about the logical sequence why certain politicians or heads of parties are placed in certain ministries, you will understand the ecosystem we are playing with, which means that these institutions, not only FSBs or Rural Development Board, across the board, these institutions are political tools to be used by the administration. Whether it is designed across the board for all of them, the abuse is a different issue, but with all the cases they have seen along the years, some of the grand, big-scale corruptions involve GLCs, GLCs, statutory bodies. So even in the placement of individuals into the particular statutory board, you already can see there is a political thinking behind that appointment process. So if that is the scenario, if that is the case, and that is the logical consequence of what you can see, why would then we want to reinforce the idea that it's good to have a politician in there? It's not. And if, for example, as what Faida has said, the mandate for this institution is to actually support rural development, it can be easily abused to generate patronage, to generate support. One of the biggest, most funded GLCs is this one, rural development. They have got massive amount of money, massive amount of GLCs, one of the highest number of companies under this institution. And they have got access to a lot of rural areas where political voting buying happens. So for me, in that context, answering your question, I do feel that we need to look at the Malaysian context, the role of politicians, the role behind how GLCs has evolved from those days into a national service agenda, into now slowly evolved into an asset that is controlled by political individuals or political parties and usually used to actually have benefit for political parties. So that would be my situation at this point in time. Yeah. We always assume that it's difficult to manage GLC, how to define it, In fact, we all can't sit down here and agree to what GLC actually means, whether it's a golden share, whether you own one share of 51% or 25%, nobody really can define it. But I think if you look at it in a simplistic manner, let's say we appoint a person who is non-political to a GLC. let's say, okay? Give him the mandate to actually put in good governance structure, all right? Now, if that happens, do we need politicians or really out of the ordinary frameworks? No, we just need normal board frameworks, not governance structures, which we have so many frameworks to follow. Bursa has it, CCML has it. So if we look at it in a simplistic manner, I think we can actually kind of find a way to work around it. Because the problem now is that if you have a GLC and he's a politically appointee, in anything goes wrong in a GLC, the issue is there's no accountability. You cannot pull him to court and put him in jail. So far, again, we used to have only one guy in jail. Now at least we got Isa now, so it's two guys in jail now. Okay? So, but also let's think of frameworks like that as well, so that let a person who comes as appointed, who is non-political, who is an expert in a particular field, and make sure that particular GLIC or GLC's mandate is taken care of, is according to what he's supposed to do, and let him run it according to best practice governance already in the market, already around the world. Maybe that's something we can think about as well as a consideration. I think when you talk about merit applications, the merit must only apply to individuals who are not politically inclined. Now, I think even if a politician is having the experience, having the skills, all right, he will always carry the conflict of interest. So when there is a conflict of interest issue or incident, what is he supposed to do? Is he supposed to actually listen to the political party, political whips, or is he supposed to ensure what he's doing is in line with the mandate he's given? So you will always have that conflict. Whether it's perceived, actual, or potential, the outcome is the same. You will have the same outcome of perception of conflict of interest. So in that context, I do feel that you need, and come on, Malaysia is 31 million. You're telling me you can't find another expert or a professional from non-political sphere to become a politician, become a leader? I'm sure you can. We have smart people everywhere. So why must we insist on having that connection? Oh, he's a politician, but he's also expert in the area. Why do we have that? Why you need to have politically inclined person in national agendas, Policy, strategy for the country, yes. But mandate for the ground, I think we have to be very careful how you allow them to come in, and it can be overshadowed or hijacked for political purposes. The first thing we should do is, I will lump statutory bodies with GLCs together as a whole. First, things you need to do is list down how many GLCs we have. If you can't even do that first step of listing down how many GLCs we have, there's nothing you can do about anything else. So your first reform priority is to actually list down in the whole ecosystem. I'm sure you've seen that little maps of all the companies, all one whole lump. If you put 32 ministries together, it's all dots in a big white screen. That's how much GLCs and GLCs we are playing with in the market. So the first step is, I think in terms of reforming it, you need to first identify these corporations. First step. Second step, you need to understand and see what are the roles they are playing. Are they advancing the national mandate for the particular industry? Or are they a form of crony capitalist agenda? So when you have the list in hand, you can choose and identify what role this particular company does. Is he actually cannibalizing his own supply chain? Is he disrupting the SME supply chain? Is he doing his mandate? So you need to identify that feature as well. Then you can have a better picture of what you can do. And other easier things as well is, in your appointment process, as I mentioned, both parties, both panelists here, I agree, you need to have a proper appointment process to get a correct, for me, non-political individual to sit on a particular statutory body or GLC and let him input, bring in good governance to run that organization. That would be another next step. And also, if you look at examples, in fact, don't go far. Malaysia used to have a Ministry of Food, look at GLCs. Indonesia has one. So if you want to regulate GLC as a component of a government institution, you might actually need one agency or one ministry to actually manage what does all these GLCs do. Are they mandating, following their mandate? Are they supposed to help fishermen and farmers? Are they supposed to elevate poverty instead of going into real estates, buying properties in Australia at low price and then selling back to the government at high price and profiting money in between? Is that the mandate? So those are things I think we need to put into a context. Then we can really see the picture of where we can go of reforming the whole ecosystem now, I think, yeah.